April 12, 1945. The village of Himekran, Bavaria. The world ends not with a bang, but with a grinding rumble that shakes the cobblestones and rattles the teeth. For 8-year-old Ursula Schmidt, hiding in the cold, damp cellar of her home, the sound is a hungry beast, chewing its way through the last remnants of her world. Above her, the floorboards groan. Dust, smelling of ancient earth and splintered pine, rains down in the flickering lamplight. Her mother, Helga, holds her tight, one hand covering Ursula's ear, the other clamped over her own mouth, as if to hold in a scream. The beast is an American M4 Sherman tank, its name, Damn Yankee, crudely painted on the barrel. It's the lead element of Combat Command B, 10th Armored Division. The G.I.s call it the Tiger Division, an irony not lost on the few remaining Wehrmacht and Volkssturm defenders making their last, futile stand. The crack of a Mauser rifle from a second-story window is answered by a deafening roar from the Sherman 75mm cannon. An entire section of a neighboring guest house dissolves into a cloud of brick dust and shattered timber. You can almost taste the fear. It's a metallic tang on the tongue, mixed with the acrid smoke of cordite and the greasy scent of diesel fuel. For days, the propaganda posters had screamed from every wall, the Amos were monsters, barbarians who would destroy everything. Now, the monsters are at the door. Ursula peeks through a crack in the cellar door. She sees a pair of muddy American combat boots, then another, and another. The soldiers move with a heavy, deliberate purpose. Their uniforms are a muddy olive drab, so different from the familiar field gray of the German soldiers. They carry their M1 Garand rifles with a casual readiness that is terrifying. A voice, rough and speaking a language she doesn't understand, barks an order. The cellar door is kicked open, splintering off its iron hinges. Sunlight, blinding and cruel, floods the darkness. Ursula flinches back into her mother's arms. A soldier stands silhouetted in the doorway, a giant holding a rifle. He motions with the barrel. Raus! Schnell! Out! Now! The villagers are herded into the market square. The old, the young, women, children, a few wounded soldiers with vacant eyes. The surrender is a quiet, humiliating affair. The Volkssturm men, some barely teenagers, others old enough to be Ursula's grandfather, lay down their antiquated rifles. The town burgermeister hands a document to an American officer, a captain with weary lines etched around his eyes. It is in this moment of forced stillness that the chaos returns. A single, desperate German soldier, hidden in the church bell tower, opens fire with an MG-42 machine gun. The sound is like ripping linen, a frantic, desperate burst of defiance. G.I.s dive for cover, returning fire instantly. Civilians scream and scatter. Helga grabs Ursula's hand and pulls her toward the meager shelter of a stone well. They almost make it. A stray round from a Browning automatic rifle, meant for the tower, ricochets off the cobblestones. Another rips through the air, striking the stone facade of the apothecary shop just above them. There is a sharp crack, a shower of slate and mortar. Helga cries out, a sound of surprise more than pain, and stumbles. She pulls Ursula down with her, shielding the girl with her own body as debris rains down. When the frantic burst of shooting stops, an eerie silence falls over the square. The only sound is the ticking cool of the Sherman's engine and a single, unanswered church bell, struck by a stray bullet, ringing its own death knell. Ursula pushes herself up. Her mother is trying to rise, but her face is pale, contorted in a mask of pain. Her left leg is bent at an unnatural angle, a dark stain spreading rapidly across the worn fabric of her dress just below the knee. A jagged piece of slate, sharp as a knife, lies nearby, slick with blood. Helga gasps, her breath catching in her throat, and collapses back onto the stones. The American soldiers are already moving again, securing the square, ignoring the heap of a woman and her terrified child. For Ursula, the world has shrunk to this one terrible point: her mother is hurt, and the monsters who did this are all around them. The procession moves like a river of misery flowing out from the captured town. There is no destination, only a direction: east. Ursula walks beside her mother, her small hand clutching Helga's tightly. Helga leans heavily on a stout branch found by the roadside, her face a stark white canvas of suppressed agony. Every step sends a jarring shock of pain up her injured leg, now crudely wrapped in a torn strip of petticoat. The bleeding has slowed, but the swelling has not. The guards are soldiers from the 10th Armored Infantry Component, the 54th Armored Infantry Battalion. To Ursula, they are not men. They are walking uniforms, faceless beneath the brims of their M1 helmets. They carry their rifles slung over their shoulders, their faces grim and streaked with dirt. They don't speak to the prisoners, only amongst themselves in their strange, guttural language. They chew gum with a rhythmic, indifferent motion that seems to mock the gnawing hunger in Ursula's stomach. You are 8 years old. You have been taught your entire life that these men are the enemy. They are the Untermenschen, the subhumans come to destroy your fatherland. Every radio broadcast from Dr. Goebbels, every lesson in school, every conversation overheard between adults confirmed it. And now, their presence confirms the worst fears. They have taken your town, injured your mother, and are marching you into an unknown fate. The column stretches for nearly a mile. It is a slow, shuffling creature made of defeated soldiers, frightened civilians, and the bewildered children caught in the middle. The dust kicked up by hundreds of shuffling feet coats everything in a fine, gray powder. It gets in Ursula's throat, making her cough. It stings her eyes. The sun beats down, unseasonably warm for an April afternoon, and there is no water. Helga stumbles. Ursula tries to hold her up, her small frame straining with the effort. One of the guards, a corporal with a thick neck and a 2-day stubble, glances over but does not stop. He simply gestures with his garand for them to keep moving. There is no malice in the gesture, just a weary impatience. They are cargo to be delivered. Their suffering is an inconvenient logistical detail. They pass abandoned farmhouses, their windows like vacant eyes staring out at the procession. A dead horse lies in a ditch, its body bloated, swarming with flies. The smell of death is a constant companion on this road, mingling with the scent of pine from the nearby forests and the exhaust fumes from the occasional American Jeep or deuce-and-a-half truck that rumbles past, kicking up even more dust. Ursula watches her mother's face. She sees the sweat beading on her forehead, the way her lips are pressed into a thin, white line to keep from crying out. Helga tries to be strong for her daughter. She hums a fragment of a lullaby, the notes cracked and breathless. It is a sound more heartbreaking than any scream. Ursula knows her mother is fading. The makeshift bandage is now soaked through with a fresh, darker stain. With each step, Helga seems to sink further into herself, her weight on the branch becoming heavier, her focus drifting away. Late in the afternoon, they are herded off the road and into a muddy field that will serve as their prison for the night. There is no shelter, no food, no water. Just an open expanse of churned earth surrounded by a handful of guards and the deepening twilight. As the sun dips below the tree line, a profound cold seeps up from the ground. Helga sinks to the earth with a low moan, unable to go another step. She shivers uncontrollably, her teeth chattering. Ursula huddles against her, trying to share her own meager body heat, wrapping her thin arms around her mother's trembling shoulders. She stares out at the silhouettes of the American guards patrolling the perimeter. They are dark shapes against a bruised purple sky, the architects of this nightmare. Her heart hardens with a cold, pure hatred that only a frightened child can truly feel. The dawn breaks gray and indifferent, revealing a landscape of profound misery. The field is a sea of mud, churned by the recent passage of military vehicles and now dotted with the huddled forms of several hundred German captives. A cold, persistent drizzle has started, turning the fine dust of yesterday into a thick, clinging paste. It soaks through Ursula's thin coat and plasters her hair to her scalp. Every breath is a cloud of steam in the frigid air. This is not a camp. It is a holding pen. There are no tents, no barracks, no facilities of any kind. A hastily strung line of barbed wire marks the perimeter, guarded by shivering G.I.s in rain ponchos. This place is called a temporary collection point. For the men of the 54th Armored Infantry, it is a tedious but necessary stop on the advance to the Alps. For the people inside the wire, it is the end of the world. Helga has not moved all night. Her skin has a waxy, translucent quality, and her breathing is shallow. A fever has taken hold, a desperate, consuming heat that radiates from her body even in the cold morning air. Her leg, propped awkwardly on a clump of sod, is grotesquely swollen, the flesh around the dirty bandage angry and discolored. When Ursula touches her mother's forehead, it is like touching a hot stove. Helga's eyes flutter open, but they are glassy and unfocused. She murmurs something, a name perhaps Ursula's father, killed on the Eastern Front 2 years earlier. Ursula feels a terror so complete it is paralyzing. She is alone. Surrounded by strangers who are too lost in their own despair to offer help, and guarded by enemies who see her as nothing more than part of a collective problem. Hunger is a sharp, physical pain in her belly. Thirst is a raw fire in her throat. But fear is a suffocating blanket that smothers all else. Later in the morning, a truck arrives. 2 G.I.s start distributing K-rations. The prisoners surge forward, a desperate, pathetic mob. Ursula is too small, too weak to fight her way through the press of bodies. She stays by her mother, guarding her, watching the chaos. By the time the crowd thins, there is nothing left. A soldier tosses an empty cardboard box onto the mud. You look at your mother, delirious with fever, and you look at the guards, impassive and remote. The propaganda was right. These men are heartless. They are letting her die. Every story you were told solidifies into undeniable truth. They are not human. They are conquerors, destroyers, and they feel nothing. The hatred that began on the road now burns with the intensity of Helga's fever. It is the only thing keeping the cold and the fear at bay. By midday, the drizzle has turned into a steady, miserable rain. Puddles form in the depressions of the muddy field, reflecting the featureless gray sky. Helga begins to shake violently, her body convulsing with chills despite the fever. She tries to speak to Ursula, to offer some comfort, but the words are a jumble of nonsense. Her strength gives out completely. With a final, shuddering sigh, her body goes limp, and her head lolls to the side. Her eyes close. For a terrifying moment, Ursula thinks she is dead. She shakes her mother's shoulder, her small voice a frantic whisper. "Muddy? Muddy, wake up." There is no response. Only the shallow, ragged movement of her chest. Helga has fallen into unconsciousness. Ursula sits beside her, the rain plastering her thin dress to her shivering body, and a profound, bottomless despair washes over her. She has lost her father, her home, and now, here in this cage of mud, she is losing her mother. She looks up, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks, and sees 2 American soldiers walking their patrol along the wire. They are coming closer. Her entire body tenses. This is it. They will see her mother is weak, a burden. They will take her away. They will separate them forever. The 2 soldiers stop. They are not the same guards as before. One is tall and thin, his face boyish and spattered with freckles under his helmet. The other is shorter, broader, with a thick mustache and older, more tired eyes. They are a technician 5th grade medic, identified by the Red Cross stenciled on his helmet, and a private first class. The medic's name is Frank Miller, from Columbus, Ohio. The PFC is named Stan Grabowski, from Chicago. To Ursula, they are just two more olive-drab monsters, their features indistinct through the veil of rain and her own tears. They look down at the still form of her mother, then at Ursula, a small, defiant knot of misery beside her. PFC Grabowski mutters something to the medic. T/5 Miller nods slowly, his eyes scanning Helga's discolored leg, the saturated, filthy bandage. He unslings the medical bag from his shoulder. Ursula scrambles to her feet. She plants herself between the soldiers and her mother, her small fists clenched at her sides. She doesn't have the words in their language, but her posture screams a universal message: stay away. Leave her alone. All the fear and hatred she has nurtured for the past 2 days boils up inside her. She expects them to shove her aside, to be rough, to confirm everything she believes about them. The medic, Frank Miller, holds up his hands, palms open. It is a gesture of peace, but Ursula doesn't see it that way. He says something in a low, soft voice. The tone is gentle, but the words are alien, meaningless. He takes a cautious step forward. Ursula stands her ground, glaring at him, a tiny, cornered animal ready to fight a battle she cannot possibly win. He stops. He looks at his partner, then back at the little girl, then at the unconscious woman in the mud. He understands. With a sigh, he kneels down, bringing himself closer to Ursula's level. He doesn't try to touch her. He simply points to the red cross on his helmet, then points to Helga's leg. He mimes wrapping a bandage. He is trying to tell her he wants to help. But Ursula's world has no room for such a concept. Help does not come from the enemy. The enemy only takes. She shakes her head, a violent, negative motion. Her heart is hammering against her ribs. She braces for the inevitable, for the moment they lose patience and force their way past. Instead, something entirely different happens. The medic, Miller, speaks quietly to PFC Grabowski. The private nods, laying his M1 Garand carefully in the drier mud. Together, they move toward Helga. They don't push Ursula aside. They simply step around her, one on each side of her mother. Ursula watches, frozen in disbelief and horror, as they bend down. She expects them to be rough, to grab her mother like a sack of grain. But their movements are slow, deliberate, and gentle. Miller places one hand behind Helga's shoulders and the other under her knees. Grabowski supports her back and her uninjured leg. With a coordinated effort, they lift her from the cold, wet ground. Helga groans softly in her unconscious state, her head resting against the medic's chest. They are holding her. 2 American soldiers are holding her mother in their arms. The image is so profoundly wrong, so completely at odds with the reality Ursula has constructed, that her mind cannot process it. The world seems to tilt on its axis. She looks up at the face of the medic, Miller, who glances down at her with an expression not of cruelty or indifference, but of pity. Concern. The soldiers begin to walk, carrying Helga between them, their boots squelching in the thick mud. They are moving toward the gate in the barbed wire fence. Ursula stands stunned for a moment, rain dripping from her nose and chin. Her mother is being taken. But not like she imagined. Not dragged away. She is being carried. Carefully. Gently. A single, bewildered question forms in her 8-year-old mind, a question that challenges the very foundation of her hatred. Why? Why are you carrying my mother? Ursula runs to catch up, her small legs churning through the mud. She follows the 2 American soldiers as they carry her mother through the gate and out of the enclosure. The other prisoners watch them go, their faces blank with a mixture of curiosity and exhaustion. To them, it is just another small, inexplicable event in a world that has long since stopped making sense. But for Ursula, it is everything. They carry Helga not to a truck or a jail, but to a large canvas tent pitched on a patch of relatively dry ground behind the American lines. A larger red cross is painted on its side. This is a battalion aid station. Inside, it is warmer, and the air smells strange, a clean, antiseptic smell mixed with the scent of wet wool and coffee. Several other wounded men, both American and German, lie on canvas cots. A weary-looking American medical officer, a captain, looks up as they enter. T/5 Miller speaks to the officer, gesturing to Helga. The captain nods, his gaze falling on the badly swollen leg. He issues a series of quiet commands. Miller and Grabowski gently lay Helga down on an empty cot. Another medic immediately appears with a pair of surgical scissors and begins to carefully cut away the filthy, blood-soaked dress fabric and the makeshift bandage. Ursula stands in the entrance of the tent, dripping a puddle onto the wooden floorboards, completely mesmerized. She watches as they clean the wound. She sees the ugly, jagged gash left by the piece of slate, the inflamed and infected flesh around it. The American doctor probes it gently, his touch firm but professional. They sprinkle it with a white powder sulfanilamide from a small packet, a miracle drug that will save the leg, and likely Helga's life. Then they wrap it in clean, white bandages, a stark contrast to the mud and filth outside. Her mother is being cared for. The monsters are tending to her wounds. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. These are the same people whose tank destroyed the guest house, whose bullets caused the injury. Yet here they are, working with a quiet efficiency to save her. When they are finished, PFC Grabowski, the soldier from Chicago, turns and sees Ursula still standing by the flap of the tent. He walks over to a crate and pulls something from his field jacket. He kneels down in front of her, just as the medic had done in the field. He holds out his hand. In his palm is a small, rectangular bar wrapped in brown paper. A Hershey's chocolate bar. Ursula stares at it. She hasn't seen chocolate in over a year. It is a treasure from a forgotten world. She looks from the chocolate bar up to the soldier's face. His mustache is flecked with rain. His eyes are tired. He is not a monster. He is just a man. A man far from his home, who looks as weary of this war as everyone else. He gives her a small, hesitant smile and nudges the chocolate bar toward her again. Slowly, tentatively, she reaches out and takes it. Her small, cold fingers brush against his large, calloused ones. The simple human contact is like a jolt of electricity. He says a word in his language. Okay. Ursula can only nod, clutching the chocolate bar to her chest as if it were the most precious thing in the world. She looks past him, at her mother resting on the cot, her breathing already seeming a little easier. She looks at the medics, now tending to another patient. And she looks at the soldier in front of her. The solid wall of hatred and fear that she had built inside herself, the wall that had protected her and defined her world, begins to fracture. Through the cracks, a confusing, frightening, and yet profoundly hopeful light begins to shine. In the middle of the mud, the rain, and the ruin of her country, an enemy had shown her a kindness she would never forget, a kindness that began with the simple, impossible act of carrying her mother.